Let me ask you a question. What is your likability rating? Now, what I mean by likability rating is really how likable do you think that you are on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being, well, not really likable at all, and 10 is like, "Hey, everybody loves me, and I'm awesome," right? And you don't have to answer that, but the reason I'm asking that this morning is that, what I'm gonna dig into in today's video, in today's training is really understanding why being liked is important to your business. So, stick with me over the next few minutes because I think what I'm going to share with you will really be helpful, especially for those that are in really the service-based world, or really anybody in general at all. This works in relationships. It works in everything because you see what I believe in, especially in the business world, is that people do business with people they know, they like, and they trust. And so, why being liked is important is because if someone doesn't like you, they're just more than likely they're just not going to do business with you. And so think about in your own life, in your own world of people. It's like where you go someone, you're like, I just there's something about that person I don't really like. We don't connect, or whatever that the case whatever the case may be. And guess what? You're probably right not doing business with them. On the inverse of that is that there's people in your life where you're just, you know, you just like being around them. You're like, I like that person. And sometimes we can't actually put our finger on the reason why. It's just something about them. There's a thing that we used to say, they just have this thing, and we don't know really what that is. And that's that likability piece of it is. And so why that is so important. And don't hear what I'm not saying is sometimes it's like, having a need, to be liked, that's a different thing. But why it's important, in our business is that for that very reason, especially for those of us in the service-based industry, is we are in building relationships with our clients. And so much of that is that likability piece. And it's something that I believe that you can work on, because people go, well, either you have it or you don't. And I don't believe that. I believe that being liked is sometimes is a skill set. Now, do people's personality styles lend themselves to be more likable? Sure. You're going to have people that are going to be, more extroverted, that are going to be, the life of the party. You go in, and they're talking to everybody, they're connectors, and they're all of that. Yes, you have there is that tendency, but I know introverts, as well, of people that are still highly likable. And there's around, I think, three different things, that I look at when we look at, being liked. And you'll see these as we come through. And one of those is, most of the people, what you find that when you like someone, is that they have a positive attitude about things. They're not negative. So think about the people that you don't really like being around, and usually they're not the ones that are positive, that are encouraging you, right? That are speaking into your life, asking you questions about yourself, and really coming from a place of caring. They're usually people that are kind of, down on themselves, that the glass is half empty instead of half full. And those are the type of people that we just don't want to be around. And so a good checkpoint is to asking yourself, hey, how am I showing up? Am I a glass half full person, or am I a glass half empty person? And because our attitude, and I talk about this all the time, there's two things that we have control over. Really, the only really two things that we have control over in our lives is our attitude and our effort, right? And our attitude is how we think, right? And that's either we're going to come from a place of being negative, or we can come from a place of being positive. And so I think that is a big piece of that. So checking yourself is like, how are you showing up in this? And most of the time is that people that are, that have a positive attitude, they come from a place of gratitude. They're grateful for, the things in their lives, not living in scarcity, but from coming from a place of abundance. And they're seeing, again, the greatness around them versus the negativity. Asking yourself, right, as we're working on our likability, how are you showing up on that? The other thing inside of it is that I believe it kind of falls under positive attitude, is that that they're resilient is when they face obstacles, is they don't go victim to that. They take personal responsibility in it. Where's that? How is that showing up for you in your life? Are you finding yourself where I'm victim to, the economy, I'm victim to, the political season, or whatever that may look like, versus going is that resilience piece of it, is like going, hey, I faced some obstacles, and I bounce back from that. I'm going to find the good in that. I'm going to figure out a way, right? I'm going to be solution oriented. And again, and when we're around other people, and if we have those characteristics and those traits, people are going to be drawn to that. When we're the opposite of that, if we're negative and we're all of those other things, now you have to be careful, is because we can also attract those people into our world that they like us because we're negative, because they're negative, and that's not gonna. Those aren't going to be the people, I don't believe, that we want to spend a lot of time with, because it's not healthy from any standpoint, of a mental standpoint, business, or any of that. So, having a positive attitude. I think the other thing of it is that, again, I want you to be picturing someone that you're like, man, I just love being around, this person. It's the way typically that they make you feel about yourself. They make you feel good about yourself, because they're not talking like down to you or negative to you, right? Passive aggressiveness in conversations. They're authentic, right? They're usually like, they show up authentic of themselves. And there's another challenge inside of that too as well, right? Because it may be, that they have too much energy, or there may be something. But the issue of it is that they're always going to be authentic, and they're usually self-aware. Is they kind of pick up on, hey, on other people's feelings, and be able to really to connect with people on that, and they sense that they're not self-absorbed, all about themselves. And they're always also they're showing up consistently. Their consistently is like their energy level, their attitude is always consistent. When you can be around them, this is like what I can expect. We all have those people in our lives where they show up and like, man, I don't know how they're going to show up today, right? It's kind of like, who knows? It's like a Forrest Gump. It's a box of chocolates. You're just not sure what you're going to get with that person. And again, think about those type of people. You're like, I don't like to spend that much time with them. But the ones, right, that are showing up consistently. And the third one in this is coming from a place of being a good communicator. I think that people that have a high likability rating are people that are good communicators. What makes somebody a great communicator is they're a great listener, really. And I struggle, and I'm challenged with that at times, because obviously I love to talk. And so it's just understanding that, is knowing, why we have two ears and we have one mouth, is to listen more than we talk, and to be more interested than interesting. I think, and I talk about this a lot, especially in networking events and those things where we're meeting someone new, is to be more interested in them. And it goes back to asking great questions, being a listener, finding out more about them. And think about, again, that the people that you meet, where you're like, you leave a conversation with them and you're like, man, I really like that person. I don't know what it is, but we just had a great conversation. And is more than likely it's because they were asking you questions. They were more interested in you than trying to go, oh, well, it's about me. Well, I'm great at this, and I have perfect marriage, and I have the greatest kids, and right, all of that. And we've all been around, those people where you walk away going, man, if I never have a conversation with that person again, I'm happy with that, right? So again, not a high likability rating on that part of it. So I share these things with you just so. Because a lot of times I think we look at it, and I think we all have a tendency to go that, hey, I think I'm more likable than maybe that I am. And, there's an old saying is, does the room light up when you walk into it, or when you walk out of it? And we want to be the people that when we walk into the room lights up when we walk into the room, not when we walk out of it. And I think if we start looking at, at this likability piece of this as really as a skill set, not just something is like either you have it or you don't have it. I don't believe that that's a that's a fixed mindset where we're just like going, well, that's the hand I was dealt. This is this is who I am. I can't work on that. I don't believe that. I believe we can work on it. I think it's a skill set. I don't think it's any different than public speaking or getting better at a skill set. It's just learning it, is identifying it and having an awareness around it. One, we have to have an awareness of like, hey, and that's why I'm asking you today is kind of look at that as like, hey, how's my attitude? How am I showing up to places, right? Am I coming with a place of positivity? Am I someone, think about yourself, am I someone I would want to hang out with? And if the answer to that is no, okay, then we got some work to do on all of that. Now, be careful as it's not to the extremes, like, hey, and we're living in kind of like self-deception where we're like, oh, I'm awesome, I'm great, everyone loves me, and that may be. And I'm not saying that it's not the case, but we have to be careful not to be um, our ego and our pride to carry us, too far on all of that. Right. And then it's like, hey, am I being authentic? Am I showing up? Or am I trying to like be somebody different when I'm in a different group of people? Right. We've all been around those people. Right. So they're this group, they act a certain way. When they act this group, they act a certain way. I think it's just showing up and being consistent because you think you're going to be drawn to that. Right. Are you coming from a place grateful? And then as a communicator is like, what does that look like? Are you being more interested than interesting? Are you talking too much about yourself? Especially in the business world. Am I trying to pitch every time that I'm in front of somebody versus connecting with them? You see, they're not going to buy from you if they don't like you ultimately. Now, there may be some rare cases that the service that you offer is you're the only one that does that, but highly likely that's probably not the case. Is that that's where it goes. So that's the thing is like to know me is like, okay, now I'm in conversation now because if people are going to make a pretty snap decision, we all do it, right? Of like within the first few seconds of somebody, there's going to be something that's either the way they speak, they dress, they look, or whatever, right? Their hair, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, I like that person or I don't like that person. And then once that comes into our mind, right, that we don't like them, then it makes it's work to to be able to convince and to be able to change it because you might not get another opportunity, right? It's you get one time to make a first impression. And so in the business world is a lot of times that really is that we're meeting with a decision maker, depending on whatever that is, a family, doesn't matter what industry that you're in, and having a conversation is like, how are we showing up? How's our energy level too, as well is a big part of that. It goes back to positive attitude, is positive energy. Am I excited about, the opportunity to work with someone? Because that comes through. And if it's like, and the more I'm excited about that, not to be crazy, over the top about it, but to be enthusiastic about what you're doing and meeting people and like believing that you can help them. And finding out, right, being, again, going back to that more interested than interesting, all that bleeds into each other. And then when people feel that piece of that goes back to the authentic piece. If we feel like, we need this sale because we need this commission, right, to go pay the mortgage payment, that's going to come through. And we're that neediness or, that pushiness or all of those things. And I think if we work on that, if this is something that, which I 100% believe that we can do that if we're working on a piece of that. And it may be where it's like, hey, it may be in yours, it may be in the communication piece of that. I got to be a better listener. I need to work on that. And now that you have an awareness of like, how am I showing up? Then you get to make a choice, whether you're going to go and make a change to that or not. But I think if you'll invest the time in it, and be honest with you, you can just get feedback from people. It's like, hey, what is it that, you can ask it about friends, the people that are closest to you. What is it about me that you like that we're friends? And I know it's an odd question at times, but what it is. And if you get people that will be honest with you, this guy going, it's like, hey, it's the way I like that you make me feel. You're always upbeat. You always have, and listen to those things, right? To what it is. And then if you really want to challenge yourself, just asking like, hey, where could I be better, at this? And for me, sometimes when I ask this question, it's like, hey, could be, talk less and ask, and I'm like, get it, right? Understand that. Again, we can't change what we don't have an awareness to. And if we really want to work on ourselves to get better, because As we get better, everything else is going to get better. With that, especially when we start talking about our business as we're meeting people for the very first time, that we're going to get maybe one shot of having this conversation with people, is showing up in our best, or as a best version of ourselves. And this is, I mean, there's studies that have been done on, over, on likability. And so we'll dig into all of that. But just to say, it's important. And I hear business owners say this all the time to me. They're like, "Bill, oh, I don't care. People like me or not. It's just business." Well, exact half of that statement is true. It is business, but I'm just going to tell you, over 3 decades of running and owning businesses, I believe this is that it does matter. Is that we leave money and business on the table by having that mindset of like, it doesn't matter if people like me or not. I deliver a great service, right? That's what people will say. Okay, you may, and I don't discount that. I don't doubt that at all, that may be the case. But the issue of it is that if they don't like you, they're never going to get to find out if that service is great or not. They're just going to go on to someone else that they like. Unless you're the only one in the world that offers that service, then maybe they have to go and do that. But for the rest of us, for the 99.9% of the rest of the world, that likability comes into play, I think, every single day, as well as it does just in life in general, just as being a good human and a good citizen of the world. Is if that we work on our likability with that, think of much better, really, how much better the world could be too as well. So that's what I've got for you in today's training. Think about your likability rating, what that can look like, how to work on that. Gave you some ideas inside of all of that today. So I hope that's helpful. And I will see you guys on the next